Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney podcast. This is the podcast where we are covering the Disney canon, but we let the random number generator tell us which film that we are going to be doing. And today we are doing a special episode where we are talking about the latest film from Walt Disney Animation Studios. We are talking about Raya and the Last Dragon. This is the 59th film from the studio, and we're real excited to be talking about it. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford's here.
Hey.
And we have a very special guest today, one of my fellow YouTubers. Alexander Robinson is here.
Hey, everyone.
Yay.
Glad to be here.
Hey, Alexander. So glad you're here.
Well, welcome. And the reason why I thought to invite you on to our show is that I noticed that you're starting your own Disney Canon watch and review series on your channel. And that's always an exciting thing to do.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about how you started reviewing the canon.
All right. So as has been said before, my name is Alexander Robinson. I run the YouTube channel, The Real Mr. Robinson. And I've been reviewing movies for about 8 years on the channel, The Real Mr. Robinson, but a total of 9 years. And the reason I came around to the decision to review all the official Disney animated movies in the canon was because every year on my channel, I'd like to try to do a long, basically review a series of movies or studio's catalog that lasts more than like 3 movies, and something that can go for about
like
a month.
Series.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that's very challenging. In the past, I've done all of Pixar's movies when Inside Out and The Good Dinosaur were coming out. Last year I did all the Friday the 13th movies for the series' 40th anniversary. But with the Disney canon, this was something I actually had planned to do for about 3 years now. Like, I had always planned to review these movies for a long time. And ironically, the year I turn 30 is the year I decide to do these reviews. So if you don't follow me on the channel, I'm doing these reviews every single Wednesday of the year. And I've calculated and done the math. It's every movie from Snow White to Wreck-It Ralph, which also is every single Wednesday of 2021.
That's very exciting.
Outstanding.
It's a huge endeavor to review the Disney canon. But I think that, we've been doing it out of order, which has its own appeal, and we've enjoyed because both of us have already done a traditional canon
in
watch.
order too.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so interesting about watching the canon in chronological order is you really get sort of a small taste of not only one of the iconic American companies with Disney, but you also get a taste of just our country and how trends changed, how things changed. It's just very interesting to see kind of the ebb and flow of the different eras and how you can see kind of our not even just America, but our whole culture, world culture, and how things have changed and evolved, and music has changed. And you think about the really doo-woppy kind of sound of the 40s and 50s, the American band, like that kind of sound, and then how it evolved and became something different in the 60s, and so I think it's a really fun experiment and to do and kind of get that flavor of now they're on their 59th film.
Yeah. It's a nice little history lesson in the making.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we were talking off air that your specialty on your channel, you love covering the Godzilla. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Yes. So people definitely want, with the new movie coming out, people definitely want to go and check out Alexander's channel for not only his Disney canon movies, but also for Godzilla. Because whenever I have any questions about Godzilla, you're the one.
Thank you.
This is
Yeah,
good to know.
Yeah.
yeah. A mutual friend of ours, 2 years ago, actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, what are the best? What are one of the best more recent Japanese Godzilla movies to watch?" So I just gave him a recommendation, and then
Hmm.
later that year, we actually met up in person, and he told me about his experience watching that movie.
Yeah. I that is a big hole that I have actually for my blind spot. I have one of the Godzillas on my schedule this year because I've really only seen like post the Emmerich one onward, which is not good. I need to
Yeah, I mean,
see some of the good
Yeah,
ones.
good call, Rach. Yeah, yeah. I think and Alexander can guide you in the ways.
Yes.
yeah. I mean, I will say, like, I know we're going to talk about another dragon eventually, but the beauty about the Godzilla
Yes.
series is that you don't really like. There's some movies that have continuity between each other, but you really don't have to watch them in any order.
Right.
So if you're,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like with a legacy, with a series of movies that's gone on for 67 years. It might sound a little intimidating, but it's comforting to know that you could just watch any of the movies in any order. Um, and it's easier to
Hmm.
catch the
Yeah.
movies that might be good for you, because there's a good chance that if you go in the order they were made, you'll burn out, stop, and then you just miss some of the movies that might have gotten you interested.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into talking about our main film that we're talking about, Raya and the Last Dragon. And one little question that I had for both of you, but especially Stanford, what do you think that? Do you think that we are in a new era with Raya officially, or do you think
uh,
this still is in the revival
no,
era?
I think we're in a new era of, and the main reason I think is because now they're going to, I think, start making films that John Lasseter didn't touch.
Right.
It's going to be films that Jennifer Lee is championing, and and her group of filmmakers, and of course a lot of the filmmakers and animators are still there, that worked for
Hmm.
Lasseter. But I think it's going to be a different period. Personally, again,
Yeah.
just my own opinion. What do you all think?
I agree. I feel like this is I if I was going to give it a name, I would say we're in the post revival.
Okay.
Because we had the revival era, now we're in the
Yeah.
post revival era.
Yeah.
I don't not that it matters so much the era's names that we
Sure.
give, but Alexander, what do you think?
I actually didn't have much of an opinion until you guys talked about it briefly, because it seems like it would be part of the revival era, just because it seems to have that same level of quality. But as Stanford
Hmm.
put it, uh, this seems like a movie that maybe if John Lasseter were still in charge, may not have gone through, or if it had gone through, it would have been drastically altered in some areas. I mean, to me, this reminds
Hmm.
me. I feel like the uh, the revival era and I guess the post revival era. For those that want to argue that this is the beginning of a new era, I think it's starting to like morph or bleed into a new era. And I feel like the movies, I feel like more than Raya and the Last Dragon, probably Zootopia and Moana were definitely the start of that. Because I look at
Hmm.
those. That was probably one of Disney's best years in a long time in terms of their animated canon films, and they
Yeah.
feel so diverse.
2016.
Yeah, 2016 was a yeah, it was just a great year for Disney animation in general, and I would say that those
Yeah.
movies are definitely
No, it's true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
they're more diverse. They touch upon a lot of social commentary, but never in a way where it feels in your face. And I think Raya is another step forward in that.
Hmm. Yeah, there's like an epic quality to the last I don't know, 4 or 5 films that we weren't necessarily getting for a while. But I think something that's with Frozen 2, I think that it had sort of an epic quality. Whether they fulfilled that or not is up for debate, but it definitely they were definitely very ambitious, I think. And so yeah, now we have Raya and the Last Dragon, and I guess we should start out talking about how we were able to view the film, since it's kind of unusual. Stanford, what about you? How were you able to watch it?
So I went last Saturday, so the day after it opened. I went to uh, an IMAX theater and watched it in
Oh,
IMAX.
nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's
lucky.
and
very nice.
I I just was so glad it was playing in IMAX, and that also I felt safe to go. I It was, there were. It was probably the most crowded film I've been to. I mean, not that I've been going to the movies a lot, uh, but everybody was masked up, and we were all socially distanced, and it was a really, and the theater was sparkling clean. It was a really
Mhm.
nice experience.
Yeah, that's great, because not only are there a lot of theaters closed, but also there were a lot of theaters that chose not to air the movie, with
Yeah,
Cinemark and
Cinemark, and
other
yeah, I think some
that.
local chains, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what about you, Alexander?
I saw this through Disney Plus Premium Access because I live in Los Angeles, and as of recording this, theaters are still closed.
Yeah, they're
And
closed, right? At least for another
yeah,
week or two.
yeah. Soon they're going to be opening back up, but at the time theaters were closed, and the closest place I could actually see the movie was a drive-in theater, which was 2.5 hours out of town. Which is what I ended
Oh,
up doing.
wow.
Yeah, I ended up doing it for Tenant, but it's like, you know what? Uh, I've seen this the weekend it's coming out. I'm not seeing this early, so I'd rather just I'd pay the $30 to watch it at home. It's not the same experience, but at the very least, I could see it quicker. Uh, I It takes less time out of my day to go drive out and see it at a
Hmm.
drive-in theater at night. And it allows me to record my review and get it up quicker.
Why do you think, Stanford? Why do you think that they went ahead with the premiere access for Raya when they had just done Soul for regular Disney Plus?
That's a really good question. My guess, and again, who knows? I mean, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just,
we
yeah,
have
but
no
I have
access.
no idea. But I honestly think that they were testing it
Hmm.
just to see how it would do, because uh, I, with people kind of starting to feel maybe a little more comfortable to go back into the theater, I thought they'd make that an option, but then also, you know, charge, because the only other two times, with that live action Mulan, that was only premiere access, right? No theater. And then with Soul, it was exclusively on Disney Plus.
Oh,
And
you're right. Yeah.
so I think it's personally, I think it's an experiment, and I wonder if they were testing the waters to see what they might do with Marvel Studios Black Widow. Even though at the Disney shareholder meeting this week, they said that Black Widow is coming exclusively to theaters, but
Well, and that's made me wonder, did maybe it not do that well beyond on Premiere Access? Because I was shocked they didn't announce that for Black Widow.
yeah, yeah.
I was very surprised.
It's very interesting. I mean, they're holding their cards close to the vest. I think they're experimenting because
Yeah.
you know, I- who'd have thunk that? I mean, not that I want to rip on Tom and Jerry, and that's not our point here, but that Tom and Jerry did better at the box office than Raya is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
And
kind of
Tom and
it's
Jerry
kind of disturbing.
had same day HBO Max release.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's not like it was only at theaters. It was the same. I know,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
That's perplexing considering that this movie, if you watch it on Disney Plus, you have to pay an extra fee. But
Yeah.
HBO Max, which is considerably more expensive by itself,
Yes.
no extra charge for Tom and Jerry and any of the other movies that are streaming
And yet
exclusively
it's
there.
still.
Yeah. What they're doing this year is so
Mhm.
interesting. They're at Warner Brothers, but
Yeah, and yet it still did better at the Tom and Jerry did better at
yeah,
the
and
box
I
office.
wonder if some of that too, and I don't wish to hijack the discussion, but because of, as you mentioned, Cinemark and those other theaters didn't show that. There weren't. I read that there were
Maybe.
500 fewer screens that
Mm-hmm.
played Raya versus that played Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a lot of screens. I
Yeah.
mean, that could have made up. They could have tied, maybe. Is what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
But anyway,
interesting.
it's interesting.
Or I
Yeah.
wonder how Raya will do, like, in the long term. Like,
Me
if
too.
yeah, because it opened at if I'm correct, because ever since the pandemic happened, I've kind of stopped paying attention to the box office. It
Right.
debuted at number
Right.
1, correct?
It
I don't
did.
know.
It did.
Eh, Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I imagine maybe it could have longer legs than Tom and Jerry, since Tom and Jerry is
Mm-hmm.
not
Well, that's what I'm
particularly.
thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that it's way more expensive than Tom and Jerry. Just guessing,
Yeah.
but but I
I
guess
would think it
Tom and Jerry does
is.
have a lot of stars, so maybe it was more expensive than I think. I don't know, but yeah, I could picture it having pretty good legs, especially with good word of mouth, and
Yes.
people seem to really enjoy it. And so it's interesting. Did you, Alexander? Did you go to D23 in 2019?
I didn't. I actually applied to try to get a press badge
Mm-hmm.
for it, but they did not let me. They said, no.
It's well, and I don't even know how helpful the press badges really are, uh but Stanford and I were able to attend, and it's always a bit of a mixed blessing. Like, it's really cool, but it's also completely
It's
exhausting.
also a nightmare.
No.
um, but they announced the movie at D23 and announced Raya, and they had a different cast, different director, different people involved, and so this movie did have some big changes. It was originally going to be directed by Paul Briggs, Dean Wellens, written by Keel Murray. And so then they brought in a new writer named Adele Lim. And then in 2020, they brought in Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada in to direct. So obviously there was some
Yeah, stuff
conflict.
going on. I saw that Paul Briggs had a co-director uh, credit,
Mm,
as I was watching the end credits, because I was wondering the same thing. Uh, and then they recast Raya, because
yes.
Raya was a different actress. The
Yes.
one in 2019 when they announced it.
Get Cassie Steele.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they recast her as Kelly Marie Tran and they just said in the thing, it said that Hall finally revealed the exact reason for why the production team had decided to recast the lead role. Raya was originally a stoic loner, but then the team began to infuse her with elements of levity and swagger, similar to the character of Star-Lord in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Tran was selected for her lightness and buoyancy. And it's interesting when you think about that, because I don't know if I really see the levity and swagger in her character.
I saw it in some parts.
Mm-hmm.
Now we could talk spoilers, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I feel like the biggest moment that comes to mind in terms of swagger was when she stops the thief baby and her trio of monkey helpers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of that there, but at the same time, saying that they wanted to make her character similar to Peter Quill, I didn't get that impression at all.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, because I don't think. I mean, it's not like Raya's cracking jokes and stuff, and being a smart
No.
aleck. That's interesting. Swagger would not be a word I personally I would use,
And I
but
would not think of her as a character with a lot of levity. Uh
no,
yeah.
she had a pretty serious mission that
Oh.
she took. I think that she was very focused on.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So before we dive deeper into it, I guess overall, What was your overall feeling about the film? What did you think, Alexander, after you saw it?
I liked it quite a bit. I think it's the best movie since the 2016 movies, Zootopia and Moana. Um, I guess maybe because I saw it via streaming, it didn't really hit as much as I would have liked it to, because there's definitely some emotional beats, especially near the end of the movie. And at the same time, I felt like there were some story elements that the movie was going to set up, and then by the time we got to the end of it, never followed through. So I was like, "Huh, really?" Still really good, in my opinion.
I wonder if that kind of comes from the sort of messy production history of the different writers and different things like that, or why some things got kind of lost.
Could
I could see
could be,
that.
yeah. Although
Yeah.
this movie, like for having such a interesting production history, I'm amazed it came out, at least for me, as well as it did, because the last time I remember an animated movie going through this much production trouble was The Good Dinosaur. And that movie, while it's not, I don't think it's bad, it's definitely lower tier Pixar. And you could definitely tell where there are a lot of hands um, kind of tossing things around with that
Yeah.
movie.
Well, yeah. I think maybe it's similar to Frozen in that regard, because Frozen also had, major plot changes and major, after they wrote Let It Go, they kind of retooled it all. But yeah, that's a good comparison. What about you, Samber? What was your overall thought?
So I was quite taken with it. I thought, and I think part of it, I was just so happy to be back in the IMAX theater. The
Yeah.
IMAX logo came on, and I wanted to cry. I mean, it just shows, right? But so I was a little amped. But I really think it's a very good film. One other thing that was amazing to me too is that this final year of the production, most everybody was working from home. That's
Yeah.
what I've read and heard. And I think what a feat to be able to do that, and I agree with Alexander. I think there's some issues that we hopefully when we do our deep dive, we'll talk about that, some of the story and maybe some different things. But overall, though, I mean, I thought just the artistry was top notch. Uh, I love the fight scenes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought the character designs were great, and beautiful soundtrack by James Newton Howard, and I just really enjoyed it. Had a great time.
Yeah. Well, I got to watch it through a critic's screener, which was really wonderful, and I was grateful for that. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very lovely film, and I think my favorite part of the movie was the themes of trust and forgiveness, which is definitely a theme that I always kind of will get me get the feels going for me whenever that's in a movie. And I thought that the the way they were able to kind of resolve at least that storyline between Namari and Raya was really lovely, and so that was my favorite part about the movie. And I thought that overall it was just a fun film that I think that both boys and girls will both like equally, which I always appreciate in an animated film, and I think they'll all enjoy it. And one thing I wondered about is, do you think that there was either too much an influence or just enough influence of things like Avatar: The Last Airbender? Where you have they have the worlds of the fang, heart, spine, talon, and tail, and of course in Avatar they have the water, the air, the
Earth, Wind, and
um,
Fire.
earth, wind, and fire. And so I don't know. What do you think about that?
I would be shocked if Avatar was not an influence on this movie, because right with
Yeah.
the opening, when Raya's giving the whole backstory on the land of Kumandra, it's like you're watching an episode of Avatar. And also just the way a lot of these the world feels just like something out of Avatar as well, right down to the animals that are inspired by real life animals, but are definitely redesigned and reworked to be fictional, like Tuk Tuk. Pretty much,
Yeah.
he has the shell of a pill bug, but he's like a mammal, and he's voiced by Alan Tudyk because Disney has him on speed dial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. I love Tuk Tuk. He was so cute. It made
really
me wish I
cute
could go to
character.
Disney World, and I'm sure they have like a billion Tuk Tuk stuff going on right now.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
So yeah, they do this little introduction, like you were saying, with Sisu, and well, with explaining Sisu and how the dragons got turned to stone and what Kamadra is. And I think it's kind of similar to Moana, where they were heavily influenced by a part of the world, by a people, but they, instead of doing what they did with like Pocahontas, they make it their own world and their own world building, so that way they're not beholden to, they can pay homage to a culture, but they're not beholden to that culture. And I think that's basically what they did here, with so many elements from Southeast Asia, but it's their own world, their own lore, their own country. And I think that helps, and they don't have to kind of deal with cultural appropriation and things like that.
Yeah,
But I liked the fact that they just kind of got all of that exposition out at the very beginning.
I agree. I thought the intro of the film was really effective, and it just gets you immediately into the story. And again, that gorgeous animation, that they employed with it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you bring up a really good point, Rachel. I think about the cultural appropriation, because I know that they've tried to be so careful this last decade, uh, and Moana is probably the best example, right? But again, watching the credits, I think they had a story trust, of people, uh, and,
Mm-hmm.
cultural experts and you know scholars and other people from Southeast Asia that were involved in the entire making of the film, and I think that's a smart move.
I think so too. And so I the one thing that kind of is holding me back a little bit on the movie is they made the choice to make this not a musical, to have it be a traditional action kind of film. And I think it was a mistake. Not that every Disney movie has to be a musical. I understand that. But I feel like this movie should have been a musical. I feel like all of the beats are kind of there for songs. And I just feel like the movie would have been way more memorable if I'm kind of walking away humming a tune. And I'm listening to the soundtrack, and I'm singing the songs, and there's just something so great about Disney musicals that, I don't know, I feel like it's a mistake, that it would have been more memorable with songs. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Stanford?
Uh, I, I was happy the way it is. I didn't once think miss being broken into song. I think I was quite taken with the soundtrack,
Mm-hmm.
and quite taken with the action scenes. And they, not that the action scenes couldn't have mixed just fine with the musical, but I was so happy with the way they choreographed those
Yeah.
that, yeah. So personally, I
Yeah.
was okay with it.
What do you
I
think, Alexander?
I agree with Stanford. I think I this the way this movie's presented, it just felt like making it a musical would feel out of place. And not to point fingers at anyone, but this is kind of the movie that I was hoping the live action Mulan would be when they said we're not going to make this a musical. Because this one I felt like nailed the action better. It's more sincere. It's more heartfelt, and yeah, the story just. I feel like making it a musical would have been a little bizarre and out of place for a movie like this. Like something like Moana, I feel like the way that movie's structured, and just the fact that you have two legends directing it, um, who basically pioneered the
Hmm.
Renaissance age, definitely helps. This one,
Yeah.
it I think it was just perfect the way it was.
Hmm. All right. Well, so the movie starts with young Raya is getting trained by her father, and he is trying to bring the tribes together. And so he's training his daughter, and they're going to have this feast of the different tribes gathering together. And there is this of the Fang tribe. There's another young girl named Nameri, and so she becomes friendly with Raya, and Raya decides to show Nameri the orb of power. I guess I don't know what they actually call it, the orb, and so things are going pretty well. And then there's the big betrayal with Nameri betraying to her people the uh, the location of the orb, and they're going to attempt to steal it. And this is devastating for Raya. She actually trusted Nameri, and it turns out she was deceived. And yeah, what did you think, Stanford, as far as this opening kind of uh opening act?
I liked it. I liked that we had a taste of it in the teaser trailer. So we kind of got to
Hmm.
see, young Raya or younger Raya with her dad, and so putting all that into context, and then uh, setting up that whole trust and betrayal plot. I was surprised because again, none of that was revealed in the advertising campaign, which was good. You know, what I mean, I just I'd say that
Hmm.
this was new to me because I went in pretty cold. I didn't really read any reviews or anything when I saw it. So I liked this. I liked the opening of it, and I thought it was effective.
Did that surprise you? Did the betrayal surprise you, Alexander?
Not in the slightest. I felt like I saw the betrayal coming a
You saw it
mile
from a
away.
mile away.
Yeah, I saw it coming, but that's really no fault to the movie itself because the whole theme of the movie is trust, and it perfectly sets up the rest of the movie, what Raya is on a mission to do, and it sets up the finale where she's gonna have to learn to like just trust others, because somehow they trust her. I mean, it works more for Sisu, which is why that I think that character is so important to the story beyond just the comic relief like some people might assume her to be.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting because aside from maybe Elsa, I can't think of any other Disney heroine that is so kind of bitter uh and maybe even a little jaded, that uh, to start out your story, and then it works because you have a growth, you have an arc for
Yeah,
her, and she learns and she grows. But I thought it was very interesting that they kind of let her get to that point,
yeah,
because certainly in most, in your, your Bells, your Ariels, your
Jasmine's.
Cinderellas, like you're not Rapunzel, like these are very positive characters. And so to let her start kind of the story in such a dark, cynical place was very interesting to me.
I also think it's incredibly fitting for considering how humans are as of now, especially after last year.
Hmm.
Like the timing
yeah.
couldn't have been
See,
perfect.
really interesting timing. I know.
Yeah. When you see her back and she pulls down her mask at the beginning, the opening, I was
I
like, oh my gosh, that's a
know.
whole
That's
new
I
thing.
fascinating.
honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the mask part. It was just more lacking trust in others.
I was like, they'll be
Yes.
able to sell that in Disney World.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, So she decides she goes and is going to try to find the dragons. Each of the dragons has a different magic, and she's trying to find the last dragon that combined all of the magic from all of the dragons into what made this orb thing. And so if they can she can find the last dragon, then she can hopefully bring her father back is the main goal. And because her father gets turned to stone, and when the minute you see her father, you know he's a goner. Like
Yeah.
he's not going to be
I mean,
long for this
It's a
world.
Disney movie, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, it's a Disney princess movie. Mom's not here, so
Yep.
Yeah.
and Dad's probably. I mean, if one parent's still around, they probably have a better chance of being okay. But don't bet on it completely.
Usually only if they're like a source of some kind of conflict or whatever, like Triton or something like that.
Right.
But
When he's imparting all this wisdom to her, I thought, oh, we're dead,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
it's like the beginning of Frozen. You know they're not going to be long for this world. Those parents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But so yeah, he gets turned to sand, and she finds the last river, and there's kind of this whole sort of Indiana Jones kind of Tomb Raider
Yeah.
appeal.
And it also kind of seemed like a little bit of Aladdin thrown in there too.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
the
you
Cave
can
of
see that.
Wonders is what it
Oh
reminded
yeah,
me of a little bit.
yeah. That
Yeah.
moment was especially Aladdin for more than that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, especially because Sisu is so modern and charming, and
Yeah.
kind of has that feel of Mushu and Genie, and your kind of your classic Disney sidekicks. And I heard some people say, "Oh, well, she seemed so out of place for the movie," but like to me, it felt right at home with that with that style of Disney movie.
See, I don't know if I wouldn't say out of place. I talked about this in my own review, but when she pops up, I felt like they were trying a little. I felt like Aquafina was trying a little too hard to match the
Mm-hmm.
intro to the genie in Aladdin. And
Mm-hmm.
like she had her funny moments, certainly, but I guess it tried too hard. She tried too hard that it at points came across annoying. But what I really appreciate is that as the movie goes on and they meet more characters, she no longer becomes the straight up comic relief. Like she becomes more the heart and soul of this adventure, and certainly an important asset
Yeah.
to
Yes.
Raya's character arc.
Yeah,
Agree. Yeah.
she's the moral center of the whole thing, and she knows that unless Raya begins to trust again, then there will be no hope of her siblings getting saved, and so she feels like she let them down with them giving her their magic and turning to stone and everything, and she does say, "Oh, I'm not the best dragon." At the beginning,
Hmm.
which I think is cute. And I think that they managed to have Raya and Sisu have a nice chemistry together.
Yeah.
And you feel like they're friendly to each
Yeah. I
other.
thought that relationship really worked too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Raya says, I made a mistake. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. And now the world is broken. And that's also a theme throughout the movie is the broken world. And I think that the I mean I don't think that maybe our world is like broken, but I think that there are pieces of it that feel broken right
Yeah.
now, and so maybe that was a theme
Yeah.
that they were kind of tapping into a little bit.
Yeah. I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely believe that, especially considering the period that this movie was being made in before its release. I could definitely see them taking inspiration from the state of the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but of course they never let it go too long without with some levity. I did laugh every time she made a joke about the jackfruit jerky that I thought was funny. The
Yeah, that
Raya
was a good
made.
running gag.
Yeah.
I thought too.
I thought it
Uh,
was funny. And then I also liked when Sisu says, "You know that group project you're in, who you didn't do too
Yeah,
much, but ended up with the same grade." I'm like, "Yeah,
that was
the
me.
story of my life."
Yeah, that was a
That
good.
was funny.
That was a funny joke.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can picture all those Disney animators being like, "Oh, I hated that kid."
Yeah.
um, and so one of the big themes that Sisu talks about is the idea of bringing a gift. That is a sign. If you express love in that kind of forward way, right, and you initiate kind of the conversation, that is goes a long way in bringing peace. Alexander, what do you think about that?
I actually didn't think about that at first. Like at first, when Sisu talks about bringing gifts, I just thought it was part of the comedy, since she
Mm-hmm.
is the comedic animal or just comedic sidekick in general. Since Jeannie's not an animal, um, but again, it goes into what we're saying about how she's the heart and soul of this movie and important to Raya because um it's like the more Raya listens to Sisu, the more she starts to really take up her words. And that little part at the beginning of the movie where hang on, where Namari gives Raya the that little dragon.
Oh yeah, we forgot to talk about that.
Yeah, that's something that happens at the beginning of the movie when she considers Namari a friend, and then later on she sends that little dragon piece back to Namari as a way to basically trust
Yeah.
her. Yeah,
Yeah,
even though it
and
goes
they
horribly wrong for a
she
brief
says a gift.
period of time.
Yeah, she says a gift says you can trust me, I trust you, and so then they end up. And Nimari's there also looking for the dragon. And so there's a fun little action sequence, and then they they get to the water, and that's when they meet Boone, the little boy that has his own boat, and he's making soup and other food there. And I thought he was a sweet character.
Yeah, I liked his character a lot too. I thought as just the went along, almost Wizard of Oz like, each character that comes on board
Yeah,
was very appealing and interesting, and at least from from my perspective, and I also liked how all of the characters had been affected by the kingdom breaking up.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
By that I thought was a really good thing to almost make them instantly likable. You just instantly felt sympathy for them because you could tell that Boone was really sad about what had happened, yet he's persevering.
yeah. It also
Mm-hmm.
gives each and every one of them a reason to be on this journey with Raya,
Yes,
because there's never a
exactly. Yeah.
point where you look at any of the characters and go, "Why are you here?" It's like,
Why are you
okay,
here?
there's a good reason. All right, come on board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
do think that I think a couple of the side characters could have been condensed. I don't know if we needed so many, because I do feel like we didn't get to know any of them as well as we get to know Maui, for instance,
Yeah. Good point.
in Moana.
True.
We don't really get to know their backstory or get to know them that well. The only one I really wasn't a big fan of the Con baby. I didn't really get it. I didn't really
Really?
like. Is the baby? Is it forever a baby, or is it like a boss baby, or is it like, does it grow into a human, or like, is it, what is it? I don't understand the Con baby.
I just imagined it as a baby who like is a fast learner, and so she's like, all right, my parents are gone, the world's gone to down the toilet. I'm gonna take full advantage of this and just con the ever loving
Yeah.
daylights out of these people. I mean,
Yeah.
at first when I because for some reason over these past few days I've had Kung Pao Enter the Fist on my mind. Terrible movie in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
But there's that like
Ah.
there's that awful CGI baby that just karate like does kung fu on everyone, and it's almost like this movie was and the Con Baby was a better version of that.
Yeah.
So
I
they would grow up to be they grow up. They won't always be a baby.
That's how I view it. Is that the con baby was smart and had some serious survival skills going on. Uh, and yeah, it was gonna it was gonna grow up. It wasn't like it was trapped in some kind of time warp or something. But that's how I viewed it, Rachel. Again, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
no, I mean
what
they
the
don't tell
filmmakers
us.
intended either.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is funny how people. I speak for everyone, including myself. We could look at a movie with dragons, magic, and other supernatural things, but there's one element that's probably more realistic that we get hung up over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and you never know, is this a magic creature or is this not?
you're
You know.
right.
But then you have Sisu getting everything on credit, which was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
That almost had a Sherman Brothers kind of feel to me, almost like in the way the lightness of the sequence, and I don't know. I thought it was charming. Getting everything on
Oh
credit.
yeah.
um, and then they have a very kind of intense conversation between Sisu and Raya, and she says maybe the world's broken because you can't trust anyone. And that's when she tells her that maybe you need to go first. You need to give the gift. You need to. And so then this is where they meet Tong, and this is in the land of Spine, and they call them the Fellowship of Butt Kickery. I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Definitely some Kung Fu Panda influence there.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely. And I thought Benedict Wong was a good choice in that role. He's an appealing actor. I think
Mhm.
I liked it.
I do too.
Yes, I did too. So then we get a big fight between Namari and Raya,
Yes.
and this was pretty well done. This was probably the best action sequence of the film, I think. And this definitely captured a little bit of that Wuxian, like they weren't flying, but it had a little bit of the appeal of some of those martial
Yes.
arts kind of films, I think.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And if people really like this kind of action, they should watch a Chinese movie from last year called White Snake, which was really the animation and the action was incredible. It was so good. The story wasn't as good, but the action was really good.
Huh.
And yeah, and then we have Sisu and her rain magic that she kind of intervenes. And you also have this whole section with Boone where he's telling the story, and it becomes like a comic book with panels. I
Oh,
thought that
that's
was
right.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing I really like about this movie is that sometimes when they go in the backstory, they'll switch to animation styles. Like they use the uh it's called Paper Man, right? The short that was in front of Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes.
Yes, they
Yes.
used that animation style for one of the shorts, or for one of the
Yeah.
backstory segments, and like I thought that was a really great artistic decision, and hopefully that means we could be one step closer for that style being used for an entire feature. Maybe
Oh, I love that so
I'd love
much.
that.
I mean, it's
They
been
they did some of that in Moana
they
with
did.
telling Maui's backstory and then also on the tattoos. And so I would love to see that more. That was really cool.
Yeah,
And
I love that comic book sequence was really, it cracked me up, and you just wonder if they were having fun in the with the storyboards, and then just like, oh, what the heck, let's put it in there, uh, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked.
Mm-hmm. And so Raya, after having lots of conversations with Sisu, she gives the necklace to Nimari, and and it's Nimari's mother who has the plan to turn Sisu into stone, and she's more bitter than Nimari, the mother, and
Yeah,
that
that's
was a
the I was to say that's the element that I was talking about where it seemed like they were setting her up to be like a major villain player later in the movie, and then they just kind of drop it.
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I can see that. And you have Namari ends up shooting Sisu, and then the when she turns to stone, that's when the water starts. They lose the water because she's the spirit of the water, and uh, and she is really mad. Raya is really mad. She confronts Namari, and they have this sword fight. And I thought that was also a really great sequence.
Yeah.
The sword fight.
It's also worth mentioning that I think that Namari like shot Sisu by I don't know if it was by accident because Raya did interfere, and during that fight, there is that line where Sisu's death is as much my fault as it is yours.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So then Minari says, she says, do whatever you want. You're as much to blame for Sisu's death as I am, like you just said. And the gem's magic keeps dimming and dimming and dimming. And you get this kind of they have this sort of black fog kind of to show the magic with the with like fluorescent colors with like purple and
Mm-hmm.
blue and things like that. What do you think of that, Stanford?
I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought that those kind of those black and purple blobs that were that turned the people into stone. Uh, I thought those were really effective the way they were animated and presented and scary. I thought they're pretty scary. And then I loved everything about the blue orb as well as the pieces. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that whole concept. Um, Again, it all it all worked for
Yeah.
me.
And then
Yeah,
and then Raya puts the pieces together and leaves the orb, which then makes her turn into stone. And I think this was probably the best section of music from James Newton Howard. For the most part, I was like, the music's fine. It didn't wow me, but I do think this was the strongest section when everybody is deciding what they're going to do and to make the orb, and you have Boone turning into stone, and then you have
yeah. They all just kind
all the
of rallied
characters.
rallied around Raya.
It,
That
that
was very sweet.
that moment felt it's funny how they said the reason for casting Kelly Marie Tran as Raya instead of Cassie Steele was they wanted a Peter Quill type of vibe from her, but that ending with the color palette and the characters crowding together felt very much like the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
And
Oh
that's
yeah,
true.
good point. Yeah,
yeah, that entire sequence beyond that is great, and I really love how it's basically the final moment for Raya's journey to start learning to trust people because she's the first one to give herself to this evil spirit and turn into stone.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yep. And then they all follow, and then Amari puts it all back together, then turns to stone, and then with that, everything gets once the orb is put back together, the everything is restored, and the dragons have returned, and Kumadra is restored, and then we get to see Raya with her dad. It's very very sweet, and it's a very hopeful, peaceful ending, I think. And so were you satisfied, Alexander, with the ending?
I was. Yeah, the ending. I don't feel like the movie could have ended in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where everyone's learned to like just start trusting each other now, and that the reason they were even in this mess to begin with was because of a lack of trust. Um, and yeah, it's just it's gorgeously animated at the end. I just really wish I'd seen this in theaters because it was the perfect moment where I could have like the big emotional highlight of the movie, and seeing it at home just doesn't really help.
Yeah. I really hope that everybody will get the chance. I hope that for this and for Soul that we all get the chance to see it in the theater.
Yes.
I really would hope for that. So yeah, for me, I really enjoyed the film. I do feel like I wish there had been songs, but and I feel like I don't feel like I was as attached to Raya as a character as I have been to other recent Disney princesses when you're dealing with like I just don't feel like I was attached to her as I was to Moana or to Elsa or to Rapunzel. Some of these characters where I was just so more emotionally invested. And I think maybe because it's an action film that we we are kept a little bit aloof from her a little bit. Like we don't have that like an I want kind of
Yeah.
moment. Like
The I
she
want moment. Yeah.
yeah. And in the same way, because it's all about a sort of a broader journey. She does talk about, of course, her personal betrayal, but I don't know. That would be my only sort of where I would put it underneath those other films because I just don't think it's quite as memorable or as emotionally. I'm not as emotionally invested in her character as I am, but I still overall I very much enjoyed it. What about you, Stanford? Do you have sort of final thoughts of the film?
Well, I thought the ending was very satisfying, and of course they're trying to make us pull out some emotions, but I thought that it was done in an authentic way because of course Raya's not going to stay stoned. I mean, at
Of
least I
course,
was hoping as well as all of them, right, for the most part. But
that would be quite a cliffhanger.
yeah,
Yeah.
a real downer, you know.
Yeah,
But um, so yeah, the ending really worked for me. I liked, you know, I thought the message was delivered in a beautiful way versus a heavy-handed way, which I think they're quite good at, that these days at Disney. And anyway, yeah,
yeah,
very satisfied.
very good. Well, we have a lot of comments from our Twitter.
Oh,
Real
awesome!
quick.
Oh.
So we have the Defining Disney podcast. They say we thoroughly enjoyed it. Gorgeous animation, fantastic music, and character arcs that made you feel something. And a great message at the center. Aquafina really surprised me with her turns of both goofiness and wisdom. Overall, another strong showing for the revival era. Tristan, he says, definitely one of the finest films that Disney Animation has put out in some time. A lot of I loved it, but we did get one didn't like it, and so I asked, why didn't you like it? And they said it's hard to articulate, but there's something about the overall theme and message that rubbed me the wrong way. I'll have to give it another watch to figure out and hopefully change my mind. Anything to put that $30 to good use. So there we go. Uh, and then let's see here. Brett review, he says, really good, though I had issues with parts. So, and then our friend Jaden, he says he absolutely loved it. So, for the most part, people seem to have really enjoyed it. Well, so our next movie that we're going to be doing, the random number generator has declared we are going to be doing Dinosaur, which I like to refer to as the Disney NyQuil movie.
I was gonna say the live action remake of Land Before Time, because
It's
that's pretty much what it is.
Anyway, Walt Disney Studios, dinosaur, the nap. How to have a nap.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. We'll have that's one of those ones where I think the conversation about the movie will be more interesting than the movie itself. But that's what we're going to be talking about next. So that's the fun of the random number generator. But Alexander, thank you so much for coming and talking
Yes.
with us about Raya. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so great.
So why don't you tell people how they can find you on social media and also your channel?
Absolutely. As I said earlier in the show, you can find me on YouTube, The Real Mr. Robinson. Real as in REAL, not the gimmicky REEL. But you can also find me on Twitter at Real Mr. _ Robinson, Instagram at The Real Mr. Robinson. This year I've started doing Twitch streams, so you can find me twitch.tv/Real Mr. Robinson. I stream every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And that's essentially it. Like I said, again, and one of the reasons I was brought on, I'm doing reviews for all the Disney Canon movies every Wednesday of the year. I just, at the time we're recording this podcast, I just put up my review for Melody Time. And then next Wednesday will be The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, finishing off the package film era.
All right.
Very good. Very good. Stanford, how can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check all of that out. And also consider becoming a patron. We really appreciate all of our patrons. And then also we have our merch store, which has tons of fun designs, including #AnimationJunkie shirts. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much again. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.